This is a true story from a truck driver in the United States. He has spent years on the road, driving through storms, mountains, and forests. But one night something happened that he could never forget. It was snowing heavily. Exhausted, he pulled his truck over to get some rest. He turned off the lights, closed the curtains on his windows, and lay down inside the cabin. Outside, the storm raged in silence, and then he heard it. Footsteps. Slow, heavy footsteps, crunching on the snow, circling his truck. Someone or something was out there, just a few feet away. He froze in place, barely breathing. The sound grew louder, closer, until it felt like the figure was standing right outside his door. But when he pulled the curtain back to take a quick look, there was nothing, just the endless snowstorm. Still, deep down, he knew he wasn't alone that night. The journey continued. Endless highways stretched through the darkness, taking him far from the city and deeper into the wilderness. The winter was merciless, the cold biting through even the warmth of the truck's heater. By now the storm had only grown worse, and the road ahead was nothing but a blur of white. There were motels scattered along the highways, places where drivers could stop to rest and eat, but he rarely used them. He preferred to carry his own food, park somewhere quiet, and cook inside his cabin before pushing on again. It gave him a strange sense of freedom, travel and work combined into one. That day and night passed on the road, but as he entered a region where snow was falling harder than ever, the visibility dropped to almost nothing. Even with his headlights on, the light couldn't cut through the blizzard. The night grew darker, colder, quieter. Finally exhausted, he found a spot to pull over once again. He parked, switched off the engine, and prepared to cook something before resting. But as the truck went silent, he felt the stillness of the night pressing in around him. The only sound was the whisper of falling snow, and then faintly, something else, something he couldn't yet explain. He decided to take a short break, an hour of rest before continuing through the storm, to shut himself away from the outside world. He pulled the curtains over the windshield and side windows, sealing the cabin completely. Inside, it felt safe, warm, cut off from the endless snow outside. Too tired to cook a proper meal, he boiled some water and made instant noodles. Outside was nothing but forest, dense, dark, and buried under the snow. For most people, spending a night there would be terrifying, but he was used to it. Once, his truck had broken down deep inside a forest, and he had spent 48 hours stranded before rescue came. He knew what it meant to be alone in the wilderness. Still, this night felt different. After eating, he reclined on the bunk behind the driver's seat, scrolling through his phone to pass the time. The silence outside was unsettling. Out here, even the faintest sound, no matter how small, echoed in the air. And tonight, there was nothing, just the weight of silence pressing in on all sides. He turned off the cabin light, preparing to rest, when suddenly he froze. Somewhere in the distance, beneath the muffled fall of snow, came a sound. At first he thought it was his imagination, but then he heard it again, the sound of footsteps. Slow, crunching, growing louder. Someone or something was walking toward his truck. But then came the thought that chilled him to the bone. Who could possibly be out here in the middle of this forest? As far as he knew, there wasn't a single house for miles. No population, no one. Yet the footsteps, they were drawing closer, heading straight toward his cabin. He held his breath, desperate not to make a sound. Whoever or whatever was outside, he didn't want it to know he was inside. The crunch of snow pressed right up to the side of his truck, and then silence. The footsteps stopped just outside his cabin door, behind the drawn curtains. He couldn't see out, and nothing outside could see in. All he could do was listen. He focused every nerve, every breath, on the silence. Whoever was out there wasn't moving anymore, just standing, waiting. That stillness was somehow worse than the sound of footsteps. The unknown froze his blood more than anything else. He had locked both cabin doors from the inside. That much he knew. And yet, the longer the silence stretched, the more unbearable it became. Maybe, he thought, whoever it was had already left. Maybe they had seen the truck, assumed it was empty, and gone their way. But if that were true, why hadn't he heard the footsteps fading into the distance? Why hadn't there been a single crunch of snow as they walked away? Minutes dragged on. 15, 20, and then, suddenly, he heard it. The sound of a hand twisting at the door handle on the driver's side. Someone was trying to open the door. The lock held firm, but his heartbeat thundered in his chest. Whoever was outside knew he was in there now. Out there, in the freezing cold. No human could stand so still for so long. And yet, this one did. The figure kept rattling the door handle again and again, trying to force it open. Inside, I was paralyzed, helpless. My heart pounded with a fear I had never known before. After a few moments of struggle, the sound stopped. The lock held. And then came that silence again. A silence so heavy, it pressed down on me like a weight. But just as I began to think it was over, I heard the crunch of snow once more. Footsteps, circling, moving from the driver's side to the passenger's side. The sound grew closer, until I felt it, the faint vibration of the lock on the passenger door shifting under pressure. Someone was trying to open it. This time I could almost feel the handle trembling through the metal. My chest tightened. Any second now, the lock could break, and whatever was outside would be inside with me. Then, just like before, the pressure stopped. Silence. He was still there, standing in the snow, waiting, watching. The seconds dragged on, cold and endless, and I realized with dread he hadn't left. He was still right there beside the cabin. But it didn't end there. Suddenly, new sounds emerged. From far off in the snow, 2 more sets of footsteps. My ears strained, my blood turned cold. They were coming closer. 2 more figures, and soon they joined the first one, right outside my cabin. I could hear them standing together, whispering. But the strangest, most terrifying part of it all, their voices didn't sound human. They spoke in short, sharp bursts, like static, like broken strings being pulled tight. Words, but not words I could understand. The language they spoke, I couldn't understand a word, but one thing became horrifyingly clear. There were 3 of them, a man, a woman, and a child, no older than 12. My chest tightened. In that freezing, bone-numbing cold, how could they just stand there, unmoving, waiting? For a moment, I thought about opening the door. Maybe they were just people. Maybe they needed help. But then another thought hit me. No human could survive out there. Not in that silence. Not in that cold. Still, I couldn't resist. I rose quietly, pulled the curtain back just enough to peek outside. I made sure to hide my face so no one could see me. But the second I looked, the voices stopped. The figures were gone, and outside, nothing. Just snow, just emptiness. My body froze with dread. If they weren't real, then what had I been hearing? My mind screamed at me to move, to think. An entire hour had passed like this, terror flooding my veins. Then suddenly, I heard them again, the crunch of footsteps moving in front of the truck. This was my chance. If I was ever going to escape, it had to be now. I slid into the driver's seat, hands trembling, heart pounding. I pulled the curtain aside, started the engine, and prayed the truck would move. The headlights blazed on, cutting through the storm, and in the distance, I saw them, standing there, watching. A man, a woman, and that child. But I couldn't stop now. I slammed the truck into gear, pressed the accelerator, and tried to push forward. But fate wasn't with me. The wheels spun violently. The truck shuddered, stuck, trapped. My breath caught in my throat, as slowly, the 3 figures turned their heads toward me and began walking closer. The beam of my headlights fell across them, and that's when I saw it. Their bodies rotting, decayed, dripping with frozen blood, faces half gone, flesh torn away. They weren't people, They weren't alive. They were corpses. And yet, they were walking toward me. My hands shook as I fought with the accelerator. The engine roared, the tires screamed, and finally, with one violent jolt, the truck broke free from the snow. I surged forward, headlights cutting through the storm. For just a split second, my eyes locked with theirs, and then I saw the child. That pale, lifeless child, raising his little hand, waving at me, smiling, as if saying goodbye. My skin crawled as I tore down that road, leaving them behind in the snow. But even as I glanced into the side mirror, they were still there, standing, watching, unmoving. I thought it was over, but it wasn't. The real nightmare was only beginning. The truck wouldn't move. No matter how hard I pushed the accelerator, the wheels only spun helplessly, digging deeper into the snow. My only choice was to call for help. I reached for the radio inside the cabin and spoke into it, my voice trembling as I explained the situation, that my truck was stuck and I couldn't move any further. At the base, they quickly tracked my location. After a few minutes, a voice came through, telling me there was a small workshop about 5 kilometers east from where I was stranded. They were trying to contact it, but communication wasn't going through. You should head there on foot, they suggested. My heart sank. 5 kilometers through the same forest where I had just seen. At the base, they quickly tracked my location. After a few minutes, a voice came through, telling me there was a small workshop about 5 kilometers east from where I was stranded. They were trying to contact it, but communication wasn't going through. You should head there on foot, they suggested. My heart sank. 5 kilometers through the same forest where I had just seen. Still, I couldn't argue. The snowfall was only getting worse. If I waited too long, my truck would be buried and no one would be able to reach me. I bundled up heavy jacket, gloves, a torch, and the radio and stepped outside into the freezing dark. My boots crunched against the snow as I made my way down the road. The wind cut through me like knives. Each breath burned in my chest. And then I saw them. Footprints. Clear, deep footprints pressed into the snow. The same size and shape as those three. The same direction I was headed. My blood ran cold. I had no choice but to follow. For half an hour, I trudged through the snow, each step heavier than the last. My radio crackled from time to time, the bass guiding me, reassuring me that I was still on the right path. Keep going, they said. You're close now. And then I saw it. A house, an old, decaying structure, sitting alone in the heart of the forest. Its windows black, its wood warped and broken by time. The footprints led directly inside. My instincts screamed at me to turn back, but I couldn't. I needed help. Still, I wasn't stupid. I moved slowly, hiding myself behind trees and shadows. As I approached, the house looked ancient, abandoned. Yet as I crept closer, I noticed something that made my skin crawl. Through the cracked window, I could see the faint glow of firelight. A fireplace was burning. Someone had been here recently. Maybe they still were. I edged toward another window, trying to peer inside. Empty. Room after room. Nothing. No movement. No shadows. Just silence. Finally, I made my way to the front door. My hand trembled as I reached for the handle. Slowly, carefully, I pushed. The old wooden door creaked open with a sound that sliced through the silence, like a scream. I froze. My torchlight cut into the darkness of the room beyond. And then, I stepped inside. I stepped quietly inside, moving slowly from room to room, searching, listening, but every single room was empty. Not a sound, not a single trace of life. I thought maybe I was safe, until I made a mistake. My walkie-talkie. The volume was turned all the way up, and then it crackled loudly, calling Sandeep. Sandeep, why have you stopped? Are you all right? The voice echoed through the silence like a death sentence. Before I could even react, I heard it. Dogs barking outside, loud, aggressive, getting closer. Someone was coming. My heart jumped into my throat. I rushed into a small storage room attached to one of the bedrooms and hid inside, pressing my back against the wall, trying not to breathe. Through a narrow gap in the wood, I positioned myself so I could still see into the room beyond. And then I saw them, the family, the same three figures I had spotted before. They entered the room, their heads tilting unnaturally as they sniffed the air. Their whispers filled the silence, but the language wasn't human. It was broken, guttural, wrong, and their eyes didn't blink. Wide, empty, unblinking. They sniffed, searching for me. My blood froze as the child began moving, slowly, deliberately towards the storage room. The others followed, their strange breaths quickening, as if they could already sense me hiding inside. My chest tightened. My heart was hammering so loud, I was sure they could hear it. They were right outside now, right at the door. Desperately, I looked around the dark storage room for an escape. My eyes landed on a small window covered with glass. I grabbed the first heavy object I could find. It didn't matter what it was, and hurled it with all my strength. The glass shattered. Without thinking, I threw myself through the opening, landing hard onto the freezing snow outside. The moment I hit the ground, I heard it. The barking again, louder, angrier. A dog was charging toward me from the main door of the house. Its growls cut through the storm. Without wasting another second, I scrambled to my feet and ran. My boots slipped against the ice, but I didn't dare stop. I ran toward the mountainside, climbing, stumbling, gasping for air. The forest behind me echoed with barks and whispers. For 20 endless minutes, I pushed forward, each step driven by pure terror, until finally, I saw it. A road, narrow, winding, clearly built by locals. Relief washed over me as I called in through my radio. The base confirmed. I was close to a workshop, a tire shop, and even a small motel. Civilization, safety. I hurried there and explained everything, even about my truck. The men looked at me strangely, but they didn't ask questions. They offered me coffee instead, and in that freezing cold, I couldn't refuse. The family at the workshop listened silently as I explained everything. My trembling voice, the footsteps in the snow, the whispers, the unblinking eyes. When I finished, they looked at me gravely. Then the old man spoke. "That house you entered, it's cursed. No one from here dares to go near it, not even us." He went on to tell me the story. In 1915, bandits had raided that very home. They slaughtered the family. Parents, children, all of them. Since then, their spirits have never left. Travelers sometimes see them on the highway, sometimes in the snow. A husband, a wife, a child. They never speak, but they always seek help that no one dares to give. His words sent shivers crawling up my spine. I couldn't believe what I had just escaped. Still shaken, I went with them back to my truck. Somehow, they managed to pull it free from where it was stuck. I thanked them repeatedly, my hands still trembling. But before leaving, I made a mistake. I wanted proof. I wanted to see if what I'd been through was real, or if it was just my imagination. So I pulled out my old camera, the kind that instantly prints photographs, and I clicked a picture of the family who had helped me. The photograph slid out with a soft hiss. I held it up, waiting for the image to appear. And when it did, my blood turned to ice. The paper showed only me, standing alone in front of the truck. There was no family, no workshop, nothing. I dropped the photo. My breath caught in my throat. My hands went cold. I turned back toward the men, but the space where they had stood was empty. The workshop was dark, silent, abandoned, and at that moment, I finally understood. The family I had trusted, the family that helped me, was never alive to begin with.